Good to see all my architectural colleagues here. On behalf of the DLS committee, I would just like to welcome and introduce our speakers for the day, the architectural department. They will be presenting to us the process. So without further ado, I will ask my architectural colleagues to come forward.
A great building must begin with the unmeasurable, must go through measurable means when it is being designed, and in the end must be unmeasurable. Louis Kahn. Colleagues, distinguished lecture series committee, in the absence of administrators, a very pleasant good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce members of the nucleus of the largest construction company in this archipelagic nation we call home. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Public Works, Architectural Section. We are here to present, and I begin by stating that we have an administrative staff. We also have clerk of works, draftsmen, assistant architects, and architects. To begin our distinguished lecture series this afternoon, I introduce our chief, Mr. Timothy Johnson.
Well, let's give it up for Mrs. Williams. We're indeed grateful for the opportunity to make the presentation. The presentation is really entitled the process, the architectural process in the Ministry of Works. The architecture section is an integral component of the Ministry of Public Works. As a matter of fact, we're held responsible to carry out the construction of primarily all government buildings in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It is an interesting process. It's an interesting process. Prior to getting to the process, of course, there's a level of, Ms. Bloom sort of alluded to this, in terms of the process through training in the Ministry of Works, in the architecture section itself. So, instead of taking this on singly, our entire staff is really going to make this presentation today. In light of the time, we were planning for at least 45 minutes, so it's clear that we probably wouldn't be able to present the entire thing today, but we would endeavor to do it. Architecture is a process that is very thought-provoking and takes a lot of preparation, and so we will move to endeavor to express to you what is the process that we see. It's really going to be a summary and not much in detail. The designer does not, as a rule, begin with some preconceived idea. Rather, the idea is a result of careful study, observation, and the design, the product of that idea. A design or a building or design of a building can come from a thought. And that thought can be as vivid as your imagination. And the thought and the process of developing an architectural design really could begin while you're at home, at the coffee table, or just at the restaurant, and an idea comes to mind. An inspiration that comes to mind. In some cases, you can take a figure 8 and develop a building from a figure 8. You can take environmental ideas that can come from a plant, that can come from a hibiscus. And so there are many design concepts that develops from just a thought and an idea. So the process goes, and you would see in the architectural process, there is the preliminary design, the pre-design, the preliminary design, design development, construction documents, the bidding or the procurement, tendering stage, and then final stage of construction administration. So we're endeavoring to talk briefly about this in the next 15, 20 minutes. Let's just talk about the pre-design. Of course, the process in the civil service is, in some cases, could be different from the private sector, but primarily the same. And so one of the things that we do when a project is assigned to the architecture section, it either comes from, and you would know this, it comes from a ministry, from the minister, from the director, from deputy directors, and so it comes from a wide variety of individuals, and so it comes to the architecture section. And so our responsibility is to deal with the pre-design stage. And in the pre-design stage, we're dealing with the feasibility study, the assignment of the project itself, which comes, like I said, from several directions. Then following that, once we got our pre-design stuff down, there is the request for a project team, all right, which really should be in the onset. And obviously, sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. And so we're trying to improve, and particularly in this area. That is the design brief. The design brief is simply the written directives that's provided by the client ministry in terms of an idea. Sometimes we would get a design brief that would come with all of the requirements from the client ministry. In some cases, we don't even get anything. We just say, I want a school, a high school, and that's it. And so it's left to the designer to then ensure that we obtain what the information that comes, or the specific information that is required by the client ministry. And so the design brief, just go back for a brief second. So the design brief can talk about purpose, the program, the location, the site, the number of occupants, and then it deals with what is the budget the client is looking at. Let's go to the next slide. All right, preliminary design, schematic design is really where a lot of thoughts, a place, study is placed into the process. Take it to the next. Right. A major component of a preliminary design. So we'll get an architectural project can come in several directions. One, it can come from an existing project, all right, or it just come from a new brand project. And when it's a new project, we're responsible to understand basically understand the site. The site is a key element of the design. So one of the things that we do is the client should provide you with the site. You can't build without the site. So the client will provide you with a site. It's then the responsibility of the designer to go to the site and see the site, view the site, look at certain elements on the site. And after doing such, and from the onset, the client should provide us with a land survey, a geotechnical survey, and then a technical survey. Now these things, in most cases, are not provided by the client, so it's up to the Ministry of Works. A lot of times we are now left to the responsibility of obtaining a geotechnical survey. The geotechnical survey, for those who might not understand, is clearly basically understanding what's beneath the earth. So survey we conducted, and that's not done for every project. It's done for projects. If you're going to spend $1 million on a project, you really should get a geotechnical survey. In some cases, if it's less than $1 million, then just get a backhoe, dig a couple spots just to see what's beneath the soil and what situation you're dealing with. So in the pre-design, we're dealing with the site analysis determining several things that just involve in the site analysis. You need to know where the direction of the sun, the direction of the wind, where prevailing winds are coming from. You need to know the context in which the building is being set. What are your neighbors? What type of structures that's next? And so those are a part of the site development that takes, it's a major part in terms of developing where the project and how the project is going to be developed. The next thing is you need to do research, zoning analysis, finding out case studies, doing site conditions. Yes, take it. You can go to the next slide. Establishing design goals, form a design concept. You're looking at the program, the adjacencies, and the program is simply what is the specific rooms that's going to be within the building. The next thing is finding out how those adjacencies, how those rooms relate to the others. There's some rooms that don't go next to each other. Like for example, you don't put a bedroom or kitchen in a bedroom, or you want to be able to make sure that those adjacencies function. And then in our case, where we do a lot of fit outs or commercial educational things, you want to make sure that offices and rooms are placed in the correct locations. What has a bearing on your design is spatial conditions, the climate, your culture, building technology specific to design. It's our next thing, once you're working with a design, so design is really worked out with the architect to determine what the basis of the function is going to be. You want to make sure that we create a schedule of works that will, a project schedule to determine what's the length of the process for your design, and then at this point too, you'll be in collaboration with your consulting agencies, like how many people, your quantity surveyors, your structural engineers, to get an idea of where we're going in terms of the design. You meet with the project team to discuss the building itself, the design itself, and how the other consulting agencies can be informed. Next slide. Right here is an idea, the scribbles of an architect, that really takes in what goes to the mind of an architect and relates to the site, relates to the building. These things are broad. You can see floor plans being developed. We don't sit there just coloring stuff a lot of times. But we borrow thoughts and ideas to systematically ensure that when you design a building, it's not something that you just wake up in the morning and you put stuff together. There's a methodology to the process of creating a proper design that functions. It answers cultural tendencies. It answers shelter tendencies and environmental issues. And so all these things an architect has to think about. All right, and so it comes from the thought process, an idea of elements. You see site plans and how the building relates to a site, and so all those components are brought into play and mashed together in order to develop a plan. Next. We're talking about samples of drawing types, preliminary schematic designs, massing of different forms to get an idea of how the building is going to mesh together, how it's going to relate to itself. And so this might look like a bunch of blocks of getting together, but it's really a building that's being developed that gives an idea of where solar and ventilation and approaches to wind gauges and that kind of stuff. So here we are. Boy, I'm taking up a lot of time. We're gonna have to come back. You're gonna have to invite us back, all right? To probably do this, but we really want to get an idea of what the architect thinks and what he's dealt with, or she. In this case, we've got a lot of she. We're glad of our ladies. Wonderful. This is a site analysis that was developed by one of our newest architects, Mr. Jermaine Thompson. It's the Ragged Island School. Yeah, that's okay. What we were trying to do, I'm gonna have to do this full presentation, then we're gonna divide us back to do the other parts, right? What we're gonna have to do is and what we would, I think, commission to do is to think about Ragged Island in a sustainable way, right? And so Ms. Thompson, who was the lead architect on the project, looking at several elements and understanding where the sun is coming from, where the wind direction prevailing winds, and you can see those how the arrows represent circulation, traffic circulation, patterns for walking. And so all those things need to be considered, basically generated from the site. It is really good, and I would encourage all architects. If architects don't go to a site, and because when you go to a site, you can truly understand what you're dealing with. If you're just designing from a survey plan, and you're truly not a designer, or you have heavenly intuition. So the thing is, what is important for us to understand is understanding the site. Is really it's really half of your responsibility in terms of designing a product, designing a building. So this site analysis gives you an idea of where prevailing winds come from. We were really trying to ensure that, and Ms. Thompson was trying to ensure that we take into account the prevailing winds, take into account where lighting is going to be provided to reduce the use of artificial light and try to use more of the natural light. And so you can see that in the design, where we have windows in the roof area that provide direct lighting into the building. So we were trying our best to become more sustainable. Next slide, please. Yes. The next process in architecture is truly the design development. And I want to say this. I want to say this on the onset. A lot of times you don't see this process. And we decided to use the process to show you basically what is entailed. Most times we don't get the opportunity to go through the process in the Ministry of Works. And we can discuss that. That's another topic within itself, why we don't. And so a lot of times we're forced to do certain things because of our time constraints and time restraints. Because a project is needed right away, a lot of times we don't have the time to fully develop. But I think after going through this exercise, it reminds us that we have to be true to who we are. And so the next phase in the process is the design development. We have architect Coraline Addy. She's going to come.
I'm not as good as Mr. Johnson, but I'll try. Basically, the design development is the second phase from schematics, and what it does is it refines the preliminary schematic designs, and in that it develops the drawings almost to completion, so we get a lot more detail and information in the drawing. It's a period of coordination and modification necessary to minimize major changes during the construction document phase. So all of your information would then be transposed in this phase. Interdisciplinary coordinations, essential elements of the design are developed in conjunction with structural engineer, the electrical engineer, the mechanical, and the civil engineer. And we also work with the quantity surveyor as well. That's not up there. But some of the elements that we would consider would be your climate, like what we did, what Mr. Johnson discussed in the schematics, your adjacencies, your climates, and all those factors that would have an impact on your design. A detailed description of all aspects of the design are developed to form the basis for the construction documents. Fully developed, we have plans, sections, exterior elevations, interior elevations, reflect the ceiling plans, wall sections, key details, and that's just a few. These drawings would depend on what project you're working on. So depending on the project, whether it's a school, a hospital, an airport, these would vary. So for one project, we may have more detail than plans. For another project, we may have more sections than floor plans. So it just depends on which project we're working on, what type of project we're working on. At this phase, we also have client ministry and stakeholder meetings. At every phase, we would meet with the client to gather more information and also get approval from the client to sign off before we go to another stage. The deliverables at this phase includes scaled and dimension drawings, and in that we have property lines, setback, easements, we have notes on the drawings, we have door window labels, and the major MEP systems such as electrical, plumbing, civils are in there, and air conditioning. Not yet. Okay, oh, and door and window systems. Okay, now you can go. All right, and then the next slide shows an example of the design. This is another project at the architecture department, A.F. Hadley Junior High School. And as you can see, we have the parking layouts defined, we have the building layouts defined, the shape of the building, and all of this is done knowing that we plan and we organize and we relate everything together. Another slide showing famous Southern recreational grounds. Okay, so if you haven't seen this, it's not a building type, but this is more like a park layout design in which we have the relations of seating areas, exercise areas. We have an area for the kids, area for adults and whatnot. So all of that was combined into one project. We have the Ragged Island School, which was briefly touched on earlier, and you could always come back, Ms. Thompson, and present on that. And that's it. And then we move to the third phase, which is the construction document phase. That's by